like the 2021 Milwaukee Bucks, we persevered. We kept the defensive pressure high. We just played to our strengths. We listened to Coach Bud, and we fucking grinded it out, Nick.
The addition of Drew Holiday has been excellent for our starting lineup.
He's a Giannis. He plays Giannis, and he's a Giannis. Their coach is still Mike Budenholzer, Nick.
Not surprised. Going into that last game in Game 6, I just felt deep within my soul, we've got this.
Now, Nick, you may say, was it really that lopsided? And Nick, I would say, fuck yeah, it was, man. The Bucks are champions of the fucking world.
And I'd like to welcome you once again to another installment of the Cream City Keys, where we talk about all things Milwaukee Bucks, what is working, what is not. A lot of things going very well for the Bucks right now, including the fact that you and I, John, both recently visited their home stadium, had a great time in the city of Milwaukee, and the Bucks have taken that and they've made it their own.
Absolutely, Nick. It is a Bucks city, and I would argue it's a Bucks state now. I think Giannis has overtaken any of the Packers quarterbacks who are going to leave us a little bit with a bad taste in our mouth. And I think that this team, Nick, is finally starting to gel, finally starting to roll, and there's just so much going on with them. Now, in the NBA, we've got the trade deadline coming up Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Wisconsin time, the only time that matters. We've already had multiple moves within the division. We signed Greg Monroe to a 10-day contract, who's come in and put in a couple solid games for us. 6 points and 9 points in his 2 games so far. We are 2-0 with Moose. The big bad bull Moose is back, Nick.
The Moose is loose.
Absolutely, Nick. And Brooke Lopez is in LA with the team getting a checkup on his back surgery, so we should have some information coming soon from that. On top of that, Chris Middleton was named an All-Star reserve. Giannis, Thanasis, and their brother Alex, who is on the G League 905 with the Raptors, are going to be participating on a team in the Skills Challenge at All-Star Weekend. Bobby Portis has apparent interest in the three-point contest at All-Star Weekend. And Drew Holiday, the only guy who isn't going, it seems like, from the Bucks to All-Star Weekend, is reminding everybody that he should be, because he's been dropping just absolute bangers of a game, Nick. Both of the last 2 games in the back-to-back in Portland and in LA against the Clippers, Drew Holiday stole the show. Against Portland, not so much, actually. Or against the Clippers, excuse me. He stole the show. Against Portland, it was Giannis and his 29, 9, and 6. And also Bobby Portis with his 35 and 4, though a lot of that was kind of in garbage time. Bobby Portis was definitely doing some stat padding at the end of that game. But against the LA Clippers, Drew Holiday reminded everybody that he should have been an all-star with 27 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, a block, and just a completely and entirely disrespectful step-back three-pointer right in Luke Kennard's face, the Duck.
Well, and the other thing is that not every team can be good. And not every player can make the All-Star game, unfortunately. And as the Bucks have been ascending, and we've seen,
Drew Holiday.
We all know that Drew Holiday is an All-Star guy. We don't need him to actually go, because I get it.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's interesting right now is looking at the Eastern Conference. Teams are imploding. Bulls just lost 2. Nets on an 8-game skid right now.
And there's some crazy stuff we'll get to when I go over the trade deadline stuff.
The Bucks are 1 game out of first place in the East behind the Heat of all teams.
Behind the Heat. And the Cavs, are they still in front of us too?
No, the Cavs are 4th.
Okay.
They're currently a half game behind us, as well as the Bulls being a half game behind us. But for some reason, they have the Bulls higher than the Cavs. I don't know if they have some sort of tiebreaker or what. But
yeah, I'm sure the math is just working out strange. But what I do know is this, Nick, that the Bucks, especially the last couple games, and I think that Denver shellacking that they took really did wake at least John Horst or Bud up to the fact that they needed another big man. And they immediately went out and signed Greg Monroe, who, for those who have not been following the Bucks for more than a few years, may not know, but Greg Monroe, when he was a free agent, he took a qualifying offer his last year in Detroit to test the waters in unrestricted free agency because he didn't like the waters, or he didn't like the offers he was getting in restricted free agency, and he wanted to get out of Detroit. He was courted by the New York Knicks, the LA Lakers, the Phoenix Suns, Spurs. Everybody in the NBA wanted Greg Monroe. He was a big man who could post up, scoring almost 20 points a game, 10 rebounds a game, and also 4 or 5 assists a game. He's an excellent passer. Well, he signed with the little old Milwaukee Bucks because he and Chris Middleton were good friends from their small time together in Detroit. On the same team there, making their way up through the NBA ranks that way. Chris Middleton convinces him to come. And he really was a signature moment. We immediately made the playoffs the next year where it was like he put us on the map. We were a major player. We beat out the best of the biggest of the big markets to get this guy. And he just chose us. He chose Chris and he chose Giannis. And the fact that he's been out of the NBA the last couple of years is actually kind of disheartening to me. He was over in Germany playing for an amazing team in Bayern Munich, who's been really good in the European scene, but he was traded for Eric Bledsoe in return, and it was a move that was probably career altering for him because he's the type of guy that I think can really thrive under Bud. And depending on how Brook Lopez's checkup comes back, I would not be surprised, even if it goes well, that Moose is not at least given another 10-day, if not signed to the final roster, because he looks really skinny out there too. He is flying around. If he would have been this playing weight when he played for the Bucks before, look out, man. We would have been awesome.
Sounds good to me. Honestly, I haven't really watched a ton since we went to that last game. So for me, looking at the Bucks, like, I think everything's kind of looking good as far as how everything else is shaking out in our division. The prospect of getting Brook back obviously would be huge. We've talked about needing a big man. So the adding of Monroe, who, I mean, we've talked about him a few times on the pod already. Excited to see him coming back to the NBA in general, but now choosing Milwaukee once again over a number of other suitors. That's always great. But to me,
you brought him up on the pod a few weeks back when he signed the 10-day with the T-Wolves.
Yep, exactly. So that's interesting to see, kind of old Bucks in new places and then back here. So hopefully he's got a little bit more staying power than the boogeyman had, and that's going to come obviously from better rim protection, better defense. So man, if that's our answer for some physical big man play until we can get Brook, I'm all for it.
Absolutely. We needed another body there. And like I said, games that I would have been a little bit worried about going into Portland against Yusuf Nurkic, who's a bit too big for Bobby Portis to handle. Same thing with Ivica Zubac down in Los Angeles. Now, one thing that was kind of sad is that we did miss out on getting to see our old friend Eric Bledsoe, who was traded from the Clippers to the Trailblazers just before we went out there. We did get to play Norm Powell, who's traded back. Norm Powell always plays very well against the Bucks, as those who may know will now be soon by those who do know as well now.
What? What did you just say?
Those who know will be soon joined by a new crop of people who also know, is what I mean. Norm Powell was the draft pick that we traded away for Grievous Vasquez at the beginning of the Jason Kidd era. Grievous went on to play like 2 games for us, and Norm Powell went on to bury us in the playoffs with the Raptors multiple times. So
the Storm and Norman
always kills us, but anyway, there has been so much shit going on in the NBA ecosystem among the top contenders coming up to this trade deadline. Apparently, James Harden is angling to get traded to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons. He sat out the last 2 games, and then the most recent one with things like hamstring soreness was the first one, a hand strain. This was the 3rd time in NBA history that had been used on the injury report, hand strain. And then personal reasons for this most recent game.
Inability to get fouled whenever you choose.
He's pissed about the Kyrie Irving situation. And
I don't blame him there, honestly.
No.
I'd be kind of pissed too.
Yeah. And then KD goes down with the MCL. He's sitting here like, what the hell am I doing here?
And they've imploded. But
Absolutely.
not only that, but
they're going into the play-in games now.
there's other guys that could handle the Kyrie thing, but James Harden loves him some James Harden.
Right.
And the fact that, let's be honest, what Kyrie's doing is not conducive to a team atmosphere in anything.
No.
So it's this like perfect crucible that we're seeing in front of our eyes. I hope this continues to implode.
It would be an apt ending to the most overhyped super team.
I
of
hate
all
super
time.
teams. I
it's
love
the end of the
this.
super team era. Giannis might have killed the super team.
So if there's anything that we can thank Giannis for at this early stage in his career, which is still very early, it's killing super teams.
Yes.
I'm all for seeing them go. The Lakers might still say they've got one because they won the championship a couple years ago in the fake season. But
They're trash and they're below 500 this year.
I love seeing the super teams fail. Like nobody's.
And we play them tonight at
That's
the
right.
late game. Like I said, I was just in Los Angeles. It's absolutely a Lakers town. But what I also will say is that they hate Russell Westbrook. Like literally everywhere I went in LA, people were like, I could hear whispers and murmurs of like, because one of the Lakers games was on while I was out there, and it's just like Westbrook. They're just so over Westbrook. And now LeBron's down with a mysterious injury, which makes me think, is he angling for something? Like I said, Ben Simmons to the Nets, I'm a little bit worried about that. I think that could make them a bit more dangerous to the Bucks than James Harden does, but not much more. The real interesting one to me is the Cavaliers and the Pacers are making some really interesting moves. So
Yeah, Pacers just had a pretty blockbuster trade.
they did. Before that, so February 6th, the Pacers acquired Karis LeVert the Cavaliers acquired Karis LeVert from the Indiana Pacers. So the Pacers enter into a bit of a rebuild around Malcolm Brogdon, and we don't know who else. He's the only guy who they can't trade this year. But so they send out Karis LeVert, getting back just some filler, which is a bit of a steal for the Cavaliers and makes the Cavaliers, who have already beaten us before and who are first in the East, I believe, still in net rating, even more dangerous. That is a team that I do not want any part of in the playoffs. It's not that we wouldn't beat them, but they have the size of any team to hang with us and make life really hard. But so then the Pacers were not done, like you said, and that's where today's blockbuster trade came down. Sacramento Kings, they just can't get out of their own way. Traded Wisconsin native Tyrese Halliburton, one of the young up-and-coming superstars in the NBA, one of the most efficient players in the NBA already at the age of like 21. And they traded him for Domantas Sabonis, who I actually really like. But they also included Buddy Hield in that deal. So the backcourt for the Pacers is now Brogdon, Halliburton, and Buddy Hield. That is something. I don't know what they have yet, but it's something. It also is interesting because the Kings did acquire Justin Holiday in the deal, who's somebody we talked about the Bucks maybe pursuing at this trade deadline. I think there's going to be some crazy moves at this NBA trade deadline, and that the entire landscape of the NBA will look different in 3 days, but not that different because the Bucks will still be the best team.
Excited to see what happens there. I hope super teams continue to suffer.
Yes.
I think it's also notable to mention that Jeremy Lamb also went over from the Pacers to the Kings in that trade.
Yep.
Or wait, did he go to the Kings or did he go somewhere else?
He went to the Kings.
That's right. So
But
it was
he's
just a
been
two-team
inju-
trade.
He's been mostly injured the last 2 years. I mean, that's the thing.
I still just don't understand what the Kings are thinking here. I just don't think this is a good move.
Well, they must. I mean, there was a lot of trade chatter surrounding Tyrese Halliburton at the beginning of the year, but then at this point in the year, everybody had kind of shifted public opinion, and the stats bear it out, had shifted to Tyrese Halliburton is better than De'Aaron Fox. I actually do not necessarily ascribe to that opinion. So what I think they're doing is committing to De'Aaron Fox, who we know had trouble with Buddy Hield. We know was not going to. You can't have 2 point guards forever. And I think Tyrese Halliburton, while he does have incredible stats this year, it is on a team that's just absolutely terrible. And he does have physical limitations that Fox does not. And so I think what they're betting on is that by bringing in Domantas Sabonis, who's without question one of the best screen setters and biggest bodies in the NBA, to get out there and have him setting picks for this hyper-athletic point guard they have in De'Aaron Fox, and just start to build out around that, because that's something that you can hang your hat on. Like De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis as a kind of inverted John Stockton, Karl Malone, where the athlete is really the point guard in that match, in their combination. I think that's going to get buckets. What's going to be interesting is how do those players fit around them, and then also to get rid of Buddy Hield, who I've wanted on the Bucks since. Yeah,
you've talked about him quite a bit.
There are just not guys who can shoot from 35 feet at like 38%. Like there just aren't people like that. So
there's just a couple, right? There's
it's
a handful.
Steph Curry, Dame Lillard, and Buddy Hield. That's it. And it's like, so I'm hoping
sober
that
Chris.
I'm hoping that if we can get like Buddy Hield for a couple second rounders and maybe like Semi Ojeleye and George Hill, we could pull it off. Now, the Bucks did troll their own fan base today. So you remember during the Grayson Allen thing where, so the day after that Grayson Allen technical or flagrant foul, the Bucks posted the tweet of Grayson Allen eating a donut in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's been speculating, and there's been multiple people reporting that the Bucks are engaged in trade talks involving sending out Dante DiVincenzo. The Bucks today tweeted out a video of Dante eating a waffle. And so it's kind of like, I don't know if that's true or not. So we'll see. But that's really the only trade chip that anybody seems to want to talk about for the Bucks. So
yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know we've talked about like the possibility of a big man coming in a trade. I don't know that I see the Bucks necessarily involved in any trades at this point.
Horst will pull the trigger. We know that. So we'll see.
I'm trying to think anything else on these Bucks.
I mean, like I said, Chris is an all-star. Giannis is an all-star. Bobby wants to go to all-star. Moose is back. The Moose is loose. I could not be. I am in such a different headspace this week as opposed to last week with these Bucks. After we got blown out by Denver, I said, we need a big man. John Horst immediately listened to our podcast and agreed, went out and signed the person I wanted us to sign the most, though I didn't even know it yet. And all things are looking up for the West Coast Bucks.
That's all good stuff. And at this time, John, I would like to remind everybody that you can find us at forthew.buzzsprout.com. From there, our main feed, you will find that we are everywhere. We are also on YouTube. We are on all social media.
All the places you can find us, Nick. You should be rating. You should be reviewing. You should be subscribing or following. 5 stars or the highest rating possible is the only rating being accepted at this time. If you have other ratings, please look them up slowly during your next podcast segment.
Very slowly.
Thanks for listening.
Bandwagon fans, always welcome.
And celebrated.
Hooray. Also, we're on YouTube.
For the spelled like words.